begin with a number, 3. It took exactly 3 minutes for the president to storm out of a meeting with congressional leaders, claiming he could not discuss infrastructure policy unless Congress halted its work overseeing the executive branch. Democrats say Trump entered the room in full stunt mode, refusing to shake any hands, and then turned his very angry departure into a chance to lash out in public, going to the Rose Garden to unleash something like a live tweet storm, vowing to essentially shut down the government until Democrats finish their investigations. Now, this clash is full of theater, to be sure, but it's theater against a substantive backdrop. Democrats holding a hastily called meeting this morning where Speaker Pelosi faced down party leaders, asking her to let them begin an impeachment probe. Pelosi trying to provide in rhetorical offense what they currently lack in action on the House floor, launching this accusation against the president.
We do believe that it's important to follow the facts. We believe that no one is above the law, including the President of the United States, and we believe that the President of the United States is engaged in a cover-up.
A cover-up. That is what Trump responded to during the 3-minute meeting.
Instead of walking in happily into a meeting, I walk in to look at people that had just said that I was doing a cover-up. I don't do cover-ups.
That is false. What everyone thinks Congress should do or not do with the Mueller report, it is a very serious evidentiary document. And it shows Donald Trump and his aides lying, sometimes in the form of felonies and obstruction, like the cases of Manafort, Flynn, and Papadopoulos, and sometimes in ways that were not charged, like lies to cover up the Russia dealings or Trump's demand that his lawyer, Don McGahn, lie about Trump's potentially illegal attempt to get Mueller fired. Now, I mentioned that last lie not as another example or just a fact check. I mention it because it is part of the core of today's clash and this Trump meltdown, because it's the White House's defiance of lawful subpoenas for McGahn's testimony that has Democrats pushing harder for an impeachment probe. And that's the context for what Trump did today, turning the Rose Garden into a kind of a theater for a one-man show reenactment of Donald Trump's own greatest hits from his Twitter feed.
I'm the most transparent president probably in the history of this country. This investigation, or whatever you want to call it, with Bob Mueller, there was no collusion. There was no obstruction. Jerry Nadler, who's been an enemy of mine for many years, this whole thing was a takedown attempt at the President of the United States.
And then Trump quoted himself threatening Democrats.
So I just wanted to let you know that I walked into the room and I told Senator Schumer, Speaker Pelosi, I want to do infrastructure. I want to do it more than you want to do it. I'd be really good at that. That's what I do. But you know what? You can't do it under these circumstances. So get these phony investigations over with.
Now, this was all orchestrated. We can report that for you tonight because the podium was literally decorated with planned talking points. Sources saying the poster you see there had been floating around the White House for a while. Trump also brought props and handouts, which Democratic Minority Leader Chuck Schumer seized on.
It's clear that this was not a spontaneous move on the president's part. It was planned. He went to the Rose Garden with prepared signs that had been printed up long before our meeting.
We should note Donald Trump has, of course, previously threatened to also stop all work with Democrats if these investigations continue, and then he did back down with previous threats. It is Speaker Pelosi's investigations and her comments that clearly so enraged Donald Trump, and she may yet upset him again with this new comment wrapping up today's entire weird, unusual, angry clash.
He just took a pass. And it just makes me wonder why he did that. In any event, I pray for the President of the United States, and I pray for the United States of America.
Praying for him. Now, if Speaker Pelosi's words got Trump so livid, how will he take this news breaking late today as we come on air, that after their clash, after all this drama I just showed you, a big victory for Pelosi's strategy, a judge ruling against Donald Trump and backing House Democrats' subpoena for Donald Trump's bank records. And let's be clear tonight, unlike Don McGahn or Bill Barr, Trump has no power to stop banks from complying with these lawful subpoenas for his financial secrets. Even for the Trump era, I got to tell you, this was quite a day in Washington. If this day were a duet, the Pelosi Democrats sound like the musician Vic Mensa, who famously crooned, "Oh, you mad, huh? Oh, you mad, huh?" And Donald Trump sounds a bit like his favorite rapper on that same song, Kanye West, who plaintively responds to Mr. Mensa, "There go another lawsuit. In court so much, man, I should have went to law school." Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.